Gabe Jacas, edge rusher, 11 sacks in his final college season, and ESPN, CBS Sports, and every serious beat reporter covering this draft has him pointing straight to the Bears pick 57 tonight. This is not a rumor. This is real smoke converging on one single name. And if Ryan Poles has him on the board when Chicago steps up to that podium, the monsters of the Midway defense just found the weapon it was missing next to Montez Sweat. But here is what nobody is calculating yet, because while everyone is locked in on pick 57, pick 60 is hiding a decision that changes the face of Caleb Williams' offensive line in ways that are going to hurt somebody who already went down with an injury. And the third story is the one making the least noise today, but it is the one Ben Johnson needs the most for the 2026 attack, and I guarantee you did not see it coming. All of that is inside this video. If you are part of the Real Bear Nation, drop that like right now and subscribe so you do not miss a single move from this draft. Bear down, let's get into it. When every single beat reporter starts pointing at the same name, when ESPN drops him at 57, when CBS Sports backs it up saying there's a ton of confidence projecting him as a starter in the league, fam, that is not a coincidence. That is real smoke. The name is Gabe Jacas, edge rusher out of Illinois, 6'4", 261 pounds, and the stat that jumps out at me the most, 26.5 tackles for loss over his last 2 college seasons. That number doesn't lie. Now, why does this pick make so much sense for the Bears? Because the pass rush problem in Chicago is no secret. Last season, this defense finished 22nd in pressure rate at just 21.1%. 21.1, y'all don't understand. That's almost criminal if you're trying to win in the playoffs. Montez Sweat did his thing with 10 sacks, sure, but after him, Austin Booker had 4.5. And Dominique Robinson had 1.5. That is a massive production gap. And we already know what happened last year when they tried to fix it at the trade deadline. They burned assets to bring in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who is now in Philadelphia, gone. Didn't leave a mark. That cannot happen again. So when you look at Jacas, you understand the appeal right away. He played in a 3-4 scheme with the Fighting Alini, but the projection is that he can play the edge in Dennis Allen's 4-3 in Chicago, hand in the dirt, and his pass rush numbers speak for themselves. 44 pressures and 8 sacks in 2024, followed by 41 pressures and 11 sacks in his final college season. 11 sacks in 1 year. That man knows how to find the quarterback. Does he have weaknesses? Yeah, let's keep it a buck. His coverage grades were not great, 47.8 and 58.4 according to Pro Football Focus over the last 2 seasons. That tells you he's not a guy you're dropping into coverage. He's not going to be some hybrid linebacker, but in a scheme where Montez Sweat already exists and where Dennis Allen can line Jacas up on the opposite side with his hand in the dirt, bro, what that tandem could do to opposing quarterbacks in 2026 is something that's keeping me up at night. That is a real luxury. There are other names on the board. The Athletic has Kieran Crawford out of Auburn. Sports Illustrated goes with Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State. And Athlon likes Jayshon Barham from Michigan, all legitimate names. But the consistency with which Jacas keeps showing up in the most serious mock drafts, combined with the fact that the man plays 30 minutes from Halas Hall and already knows Midwest football culture from the inside out, there's something there I cannot ignore. Ryan Poles has 3 picks on Friday night. The first one, pick 57, is where this story gets written or gets erased. And if Jacas is still on the board when the Bears are on the clock, man, that would immediately change the conversation around this defense in the Windy City. But 57 is not the only pick that matters tonight, because 60 and 89 carry their own stories. And one of them involves a position you probably weren't thinking of as a priority until you start looking at the numbers. Look, I'm going to be straight with you here because this one hurts a little to talk about as a Bears fan. Ozzie Trapilo was last year's gem, a second-round pick, came in and fought for his job, won the starting left tackle spot, and right when everything started clicking, knee, torn patellar tendon in the wild-card game against the Packers. That is devastating for the player, and now the Bears have to be brutally pragmatic about it. Here's the problem. The left tackle position in Chicago right now is a war zone. Braxton Jones, who started 3 straight seasons, posted a 55.5 grade on Pro Football Focus last year. Theo Benedette filled in well for Jones before Trapilo took over, but his grade wasn't exactly worth celebrating either, 55.8. with 26 pressures allowed and 2 sacks on 334 pass blocking snaps. And then there's Jedrick Wills, the new signing, a former top 10 pick out of Cleveland who missed all of last season recovering from injuries. And the last time he actually played, he posted a 52.9 grade with 11 pressures and 3 sacks on just 156 snaps. None of those 3 is a reliable answer, none of them. And the Athletics' Dan Wiederer laid it out directly. If a high-value tackle prospect falls to pick 25 in the first round, the Bears shouldn't hesitate. That didn't happen because they took Thieneman. But the storyline doesn't end there. On day 2, names like Gennings Dunker out of Iowa and Caleb Lomu out of Utah show up as real candidates to add depth and competition at the position. Dunker, for example, who USA Today projects to pick 60, is described as a lineman with NFL-level power and a run-game mentality that offensive line coaches absolutely love. The projection doesn't see him surviving on the edge in the pros, but as a mauling guard in Ben Johnson's system, that makes real sense. And here's what's interesting about all of this when it comes to Tropilo himself. If the Bears draft a tackle or a versatile lineman this weekend and that player performs well during the 2026 season, the pressure on Tropilo to reclaim his spot in 2027 goes way up. That sounds cold, but in the NFL, I deserve the job because I was hurt doesn't exist. You earn it back, and Poles knows that. Which is exactly why it would not be a shock if pick 60 goes to a lineman with real upside. Now, there is a third story today, and if you're a fan of how Ben Johnson runs his offense, this one is going to put a smile on your face. Because there's a name that quietly just improved his situation on this team without asking anyone's permission. Okay, this is the story that doesn't scream in the headlines, but that smart Bears fans need to understand. Chicago lost DJ Moore, they lost Olamide Zaccheaus, and the only real move they made to replace that production was signing Khalif Raymond as a free agent. And a lot of fans were nervous, rightfully so, thinking that in the first round, the Bears were going to take a receiver who would push Raymond to the bench before the season even started. That didn't happen. Poles took Dylan Thieneman, a safety, and that decision, man, is a direct blessing for Khalif Raymond. Right now, the projected starting receiver lineup is Rome Odunze, Luther Burden III, and Khalif Raymond. That is real. That is the starting lineup, as long as the rest of the draft doesn't say otherwise. And why can Raymond actually work in that role? Because he's been there before. In Detroit, in 2022, he put up 616 yards as a secondary option. In 2023, 489 yards. He is not a number 1 receiver. He's not pretending to be, but as the third receiver in a system where the tight end and the running back also demand defensive attention, Raymond can be exactly what Ben Johnson needs. And there's something else that nobody is talking about enough. Raymond worked directly with Ben Johnson in Detroit. That relationship is not trivial. When a head coach already knows your tendencies, your routes, your timing off the line, that accelerates everything. The learning curve practically disappears. Look, I could be wrong, but when I see a player that the head coach already knows firsthand, who fits perfectly into the third receiver role of the scheme, and who now knows he won't be displaced by a first-round pick, that is a motivated player. That is a guy showing up to training camp with something to prove and the confidence that the boss already believes in him. The Bears still have day 2 picks that could bring competition to the receiver room. The Athletic projects Antonio Williams from Clemson to pick 60. PFF likes Chris Bell from Louisville, but none of those are number 1 receivers coming in to take anyone's starting job. Khalif Raymond's starting spot is more secure today than it was 48 hours ago, and in the NFL, that means a lot. Tonight, the Bears step to the podium with picks 57, 60, and 89, and fam, day 2 can define as much or more than the first round did. If Gabe Jacas falls to 57, Poles has got to press that button without blinking. If pick 60 brings the right piece for the offensive line future, you take it. And if 89 adds another pass rusher or a versatile lineman, this roster suddenly looks very different from where it stood Thursday night. This is the part of the draft where championship rosters get built in silence. And Da Bears are right in the middle of that process right now. If this has you as locked in as it has me, you already know what to do. Drop that like, let the algorithm know. The Bear Down faithful are here. And tell me in the comments, do you want Gabe Jacas at 57, or do you think Poles goes in a different direction? I want to read your take. Bear Down.